further research into the effects of lysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD, is essential in confirming the consequences of the substance. My advocate had three claims. Three secondary claims. His first secondary claim is that current research documents no physical harm produced from ingestion of the substance, only hallucinogenic effects. The second, that people are ingesting drugs being sold as LSD and are actually consuming a number of dangerous research chemicals. And lastly, that there may be possible medical applications in the psychological field. My response to the first claim is that LSD does actually have some physical effects, even if they aren't directly life-threatening. LSD causes dilated pupils, higher body temperature, increased heart rate and blood pressure, sweating, loss of appetite, sleeplessness, dry mouth, and tremors, according to the DEA. Also, the advocate fails to consider the possibility that some psychological effects could possibly translate into physical effects, since LSD is a hallucinogen. LSD, or according to Samantha Olson of the Medical Daily, LSD specifically activates the 2A subtype serotonin receptor, and the HT2A receptor is involved in cognitive processes of obtaining knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses, and the prefrontal cortex, which controls a person's impulsiveness. LSD actually has a similar structure to a chemical in the brain that mimics psychosis, which is responsible for the altered sensory and perception, uncontrolled memory retrieval, and other indescribable images and emotions. And the reason why this is likely to translate into something physical is because we tend to express ourselves in physical ways, and this can cause us to inflict harm on others and even ourselves, or the users, as a result of their senses being out of balance. The National Institute of Health states that evidence indicates certain hallucinogens can be addictive, or that people can develop a tolerance to them. And even though LSD isn't an addictive drug, it does produce tolerance, so some users who take the drug repeatedly must take higher doses to achieve the same effect. This is extremely dangerous given the unpredictability of the drug, and scientists need more research into the tolerance and addiction potential of hallucinogens. Given that researchers are unsure of the addictiveness of the drug, as well as unpredictability, making the claim that LSD causes no physical harm seems to be an inadequate one and based on an insufficient amount of evidence. My response to the secondary claim, that the speaker's reasoning that doing more research on LSD will give awareness to dangers of other similar looking drugs and their effects does not directly support his claim, which states that further research into LSD itself is essential in confirming its effects. In fact, the way that the speaker phrased his secondary claim made it seem like a fact rather than a claim of fact. People actually are ingesting drugs being sold as LSD and are consuming a number of these dangerous chemical drugs. Similarly, my last claim is that the phrasing of his last secondary claim makes the claim ambiguous and is not really developed. His claim is that there might possibly be medical applications of LSD. And then the speaker proceeds to take the stance that seems to suggest that there are medical applications of LSD, with his main proof being the report that claimed that LSD promoted a decrease in alcoholism in those addicted to alcohol, which he did not cite. There is no solid evidence that he provides that would support his claim that there might be medical applications of LSD. So in conclusion, the advocate's speech provided insufficient arguments and evidence to support the claim. Thank
right, structurally everything was fine at the beginning of the speech. The signpost on the first point was pretty clear. You had some good counter evidence about potential physical effects of LSD, and you do a post citation on that. That's a little bit confusing. It should do the other way, give the source citation prior to presenting the evidence. But you listed a number of physical attributes that LSD might have on the body. I thought that you did a nice job talking about how the psychological impacts could have these negative consequences, but I thought that there wasn't enough follow-through on this. You mentioned some problems that people might have with cognition, and then you mentioned impulsiveness. There's even a quote that suggests that it mimics psychosis. So what kinds of impulsive behaviors, what kinds of psychotic actions could in fact be threatening or dangerous? We don't even get a hypothetical in this situation. I think that's a little bit problematic. I think that there are some arguments that might be made that talk about maybe people acting out in a violent way under the influence, or failing to protect themselves from danger because of the psychological or hallucinogenic effects that you're talking about. Any examples like that would be something that you can contrast to whatever the advocate's talking about on the third point, if we ever get to that particular point. Then you talk about the issue of whether or not it's addictive, and you basically say that there are tolerance levels. How important it is that it's addictive or not addictive, I'm not quite sure, but the notion that people have to take more in order to get that particular effect seems to suggest that there is, in fact, some kind of need for people to use the drug in an increasingly substantial way. If the dosage is related to any of those harms that you had on that first point, then that would suggest a potential physical harm. I didn't hear anything that suggested that, but maybe that's the inference that you're trying to draw there. On the second argument, basically, I think you're just saying it's true. Okay, so there are people who use fake LSD and they get hurt and sick from that. And your argument needs to be, there's no demonstration that doing research on LSD would change any of that. I think that's the claim that you want to be making there, and you don't really have a clear declarative statement on that. You just kind of say, well, he's presenting a fact, not a claim of fact. I don't know what the advocate's inference was, but you should be able to be clear on what your inference is, and that is that doing additional research on LSD is not going to address that problem. It's as simple as that. On the third point, you've got a general criticism of the word might that is being presented there. You challenge whether or not there's adequate evidence on this particular point. Since the example of alcoholism was not really cited, I think that that's a good press to make on that particular point. It would be stronger if you had some information that suggested that it has largely been debunked. Or the other thing that you might point out is that there are plenty of other alternatives that don't have the psychotic effects that LSD have to treat issues like alcoholism, for instance. All right, thank you.